The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the marble floor of the Ashworth mansion as Marcus Ashworth pulled Vivian closer, his hand finding the small of her back with practiced intimacy. The party was in full swing. 200 of the city's elite mingling beneath oil paintings worth more than most people's homes, their laughter echoing through the opulent ballroom like the soundtrack to his perfect life. But Marcus only had eyes for the stunning redhead in his arms. "You're being reckless," Vivian whispered against his ear, her breath warm and intoxicating. The scent of her perfume, something expensive and French that he'd bought her last month, filled his senses. "What if someone sees?" Marcus chuckled, the sound rich and confident, vibrating through his chest as he guided her through another turn. "Let them see. I own half this city, sweetheart. Besides, Elena's in Switzerland at that wellness retreat, remember? She won't be back for another week." The lie rolled off his tongue as smoothly as aged whiskey. In truth, he'd sent his wife away deliberately, fabricating a story about needing time to focus on business while she dealt with the stress of her pregnancy. 7 months along with their first child, Elena had been nothing but devoted, trusting, and blissfully unaware of his double life. The irony wasn't lost on him. While she was carrying his heir in some mountain clinic, he was here, spinning his mistress under the very roof that would one day belong to that child. Vivienne Sinclair wasn't just any mistress. She was a calculated choice. 28, ambitious, and dangerously beautiful, she ran an art gallery that served as the perfect front for their affair. Her business attracted the same wealthy clientele he moved among, making their relationship easy to disguise as professional collaboration. Their affair had started 18 months ago at a charity auction, a moment of weakness that had spiraled into an obsession Marcus couldn't shake. He remembered that night vividly. Elena had been feeling unwell and stayed home, leaving him to attend alone. Vivian had been wearing a black dress that hugged every curve, her red hair pinned up to expose the elegant line of her neck. When she'd approached him about acquiring a particular sculpture for his collection, her fingers had brushed against his as she handed him the catalog. The electricity had been immediate, undeniable. "Dance with me," he murmured now, leading her toward the center of the ballroom where other couples swayed to the string quartet's melodic performance. The musicians, flown in from Vienna at considerable expense, played with the kind of precision that only money could buy. The music swelled as Marcus spun Vivian dramatically, her emerald dress flaring like liquid silk around her legs. She laughed, the sound musical and carefree, and several nearby guests paused their conversations to watch the mesmerizing display. Marcus felt a surge of pride. She was exquisite, and she was his. Senator Morrison's wife looked on with barely concealed envy, while tech mogul James Chen whispered something to his companion that made her glance over with obvious interest. "You're showing off," Vivian teased as he pulled her back into his arms, her green eyes sparkling with mischief. "Can you blame me? Look at you." His voice was low, intimate, meant only for her ears. "You're the most beautiful woman in this room." She preened under the compliment, her smile becoming more radiant. This was what he loved about Vivian. She was hungry for luxury, for attention, for all the things his money could provide. Unlike Elena, who had been born into wealth and sometimes seemed almost embarrassed by it, Vivienne appreciated every gift, every expensive dinner, every weekend getaway to his private jet. "You know," Vivienne said as they continued to move, "together, I've been thinking about what you said last week, about us having a real future together." Marcus's grip tightened slightly on her waist. He'd been drunk when he'd made those promises, caught up in the moment after a particularly passionate evening at her penthouse apartment. The truth was, he had no intention of leaving Elena, at least not yet. His wife's family connections were too valuable, her father's business empire too intertwined with his own. The Ashworth-Romano alliance had been worth billions in government contracts and international deals. But Vivienne didn't need to know the complexities of his situation. "Of course, darling. Once this baby situation settles down—" Baby situation? Vivienne's eyes flashed dangerously, her steps faltering for just a moment. "That's your child you're talking about, Marcus. Your heir." Something cold crept into her voice, a steel beneath the silk that made him pause. But before Marcus could respond, she was smiling again, pressing closer as they continued to dance. Her fingers traced patterns on his shoulder, and he felt the familiar stirring of desire that she always ignited in him. Around them, the party continued its opulent parade, senators laughing with pharmaceutical executives over crystal glasses of Dom Perignon, tech moguls making deals worth millions over imported caviar, old money mingling with new in the eternal dance of power and influence. The guest list read like a who's who of American wealth and power, all gathered in his home, drinking his wine, admiring his art collection. Marcus caught sight of his reflection in one of the gilded mirrors lining the ballroom wall. At 45, he was still strikingly handsome, his dark hair showing just enough silver at the temples to suggest distinguished experience rather than age. His custom-tailored tuxedo, Armani, naturally, fit his athletic frame perfectly, the result of personal trainers and careful attention to his appearance. The Patek Philippe on his wrist caught the light with each movement, its platinum case worth more than most people's annual salaries. He looked like exactly what he was, a man who commanded respect, demanded attention, and got whatever he wanted. The Ashworth name opened doors that remained closed to lesser men. His great-grandfather had built the family fortune in railroads. His grandfather had expanded into oil. His father had conquered real estate. And Marcus had taken it all digital, turning inherited millions into billions through a series of tech acquisitions and strategic partnerships. "I love watching you, like this," Vivienne murmured, her fingers tracing the lapel of his jacket with possessive familiarity. "So confident, so in control. It's intoxicating." Marcus spun her again, more extravagantly this time, drawing appreciative murmurs from the crowd. She moved like water in his arms, every gesture graceful and practiced. He wondered, not for the first time, if she'd taken dance lessons specifically to please him. The thought thrilled him, the idea that she'd shaped herself to fit his desires. "You bring out the best in me," he said, pulling her close enough that he could smell her perfume again, could feel the warmth of her skin through the thin fabric of her dress. "Do I?" Her smile was enigmatic now, holding secrets he couldn't, quite red. "Or do I just give you permission to be who you really are?" Before he could answer, the music shifted to something more dramatic, more passionate. The violin soared above the other instruments as Marcus dipped Vivienne low, her hair cascading toward the floor like a waterfall of fire. The crowd erupted in polite applause, and he basked in the attention, in the envy he saw in other men's eyes, in the knowledge that he was the king of his domain. This was his world, his realm. The Ashworth mansion had been in his family for 3 generations, its 40 rooms filled with priceless art and antiques. Every politician worth knowing had dined at his table. Every deal of consequence had been sealed in his study. He was untouchable, invincible. As the song reached its crescendo, Marcus felt a rush of pure euphoria. Tomorrow, he'd return to the careful balancing act of managing both his wife and his mistress, but tonight belonged to him and Vivienne. Tonight, he could pretend that consequences didn't exist, that actions didn't have prices, that his carefully constructed life would continue forever exactly as he'd designed it. That's when he heard it, a sound that made his blood freeze in his veins and his perfect world begin to crack. The slow, deliberate click of heels on marble growing louder, with each step cutting through the music and laughter like a blade through silk.